You stepped outside this morning, looked at your feeder, and it was empty. Not just of seed, of birds. The feeder was full, the water was clean, you hadn't changed a thing, but they were gone. Here's what nobody tells you. Birds don't leave randomly. They leave because something in your yard told them to, and most of the time, it's something you've been doing for months, without a second thought. Subscribe to Bird Sense right now, because what you're about to learn will change the way you look at your feeder for good. Today we're going through 10 everyday things that are quietly driving your cardinal and every other bird in your yard away, some of them for good. Stay until the end, because number 10 is the one that actually explains everything else on this list. Number 1. Your feeder is in the wrong place, and your cardinal knows it immediately. Most people put a feeder where they can see it, from the kitchen window, from the porch. That works for you. It does not work for him. Before landing, a cardinal is running a threat assessment, escape routes, nearby cover, exposure to anything that could kill him in the next 10 seconds. Researchers at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology have found that birds strongly prefer feeders within 10 to 12 feet of dense cover, close enough to disappear into, if a hawk shows up, far enough that a cat can't hide directly underneath. A feeder sitting alone in an open lawn, visible from every angle, reads as a trap. Move it near a shrub. That's the whole fix. Number 2. You're using seed your cardinal won't touch. Most grocery store mixes are padded with Milo, red millet, and oats, filler. That's cheap for the manufacturer and worthless to him. Cornell's Project Feeder Watch, which has tracked feeder preferences across billions of observations, consistently ranks black oil sunflower seed as the single most accepted seed among North American backyard birds. Cardinals depend on it. Safflower is a close second, and it has the added benefit of being less appealing to house sparrows, which means more of it stays available for the birds you actually want. If your feeder has gone quiet, this is often the fastest fix there is. Number 3, your feeder is dirty, and you don't realize how dangerous that actually is. Wet seed sitting for more than 2 or 3 days develops mold, including aspergillus, a fungal pathogen that causes a respiratory disease with no cure. Feeders that go too long between cleanings also spread salmonellosis and other diseases between every bird that visits. The National Audubon Society recommends cleaning every 2 weeks in dry weather, every 3 to 5 days in humid conditions, using a 9-to-1 water and vinegar solution, scrubbed and rinsed completely. If you've noticed birds looking fluffed, lethargic, or sitting still too long at your feeder, the feeder itself may be the reason. Number 4, there's a cat in the equation. Yours or a neighbor's. The American Bird Conservancy estimates that free-ranging domestic cats kill between 1.3 and 4 billion birds in the United States every year. That number holds even for well-fed cats, because stalking is instinctive, not hunger-driven, and a cat doesn't need to make a kill to ruin your yard's reputation. Birds track danger through alarm calls and avoidance behavior. Researchers call it landscape of fear mapping. And once a cat is known to patrol an area, birds avoid it even when the cat isn't there. A motion-activated sprinkler near the feeder is a humane way to teach a neighborhood cat to patrol somewhere else. Number 5, your water source is wrong, or it isn't there at all. Multiple habitat studies have found that fresh water attracts more species than seed alone, because birds need it for bathing as much as drinking. And a bird that can't bathe loses the feather integrity it needs to fly and survive cold nights. Still water breeds bacteria and mosquitoes within 48 to 72 hours, which makes an unchanged bath worse than no bath at all. The single best upgrade is a small dripper that keeps the water moving. Moving water catches light and sound at a distance a still bath never will, and cardinals in particular respond to it fast. Birders who add a dripper commonly report a noticeable jump in cardinal visits within the first week. Number 6, your yard is too unpredictable. Even if it doesn't feel loud to you, a cardinal sitting confidently on your feeder is still running a constant risk calculation, and birds absolutely habituate to a consistent human routine. They learn when you take out the trash, when the kids leave for school. What they don't habituate to is unpredictability, sudden noise, a door slamming, a wind chime hung right next to the feeder. None of that requires a silent yard. It requires a consistent one, 30 undisturbed minutes in the early morning, when birds need to feed most urgently, does more for retention than almost anything else on this list. Number 7, you've made your yard too tidy to be useful. A manicured lawn signals care to a human and reads as a food desert to a bird. Fallen leaves aren't debris. They're a layer of insects and seeds that ground-feeding birds depend on entirely. Dead branches are prime foraging spots for woodpeckers and nuthatches. The National Wildlife Federation certifies habitat based on 4 things: food, water, cover, and nesting sites. And a perfectly clipped yard typically fails 3 of them. You don't need to let the whole yard go wild. One unmowed corner, one dead branch left standing, is often the difference between a yard birds pass through and a yard they choose. Number 8, you only have one kind of feeder, so you're only getting one kind of bird. A single tube feeder filters out an enormous share of the species that would otherwise visit. Cardinals prefer a platform or hopper feeder they can perch on comfortably. They are not built for clinging to a small tube port the way a finch is. Ground-feeding species like towhees and juncos won't use a hanging feeder at all, no matter how well stocked it is. Wildlife biologists studying backyard diversity consistently find that yards with 2 or 3 feeder types, a platform, a tube, and a sweat cage, attract measurably more species than yards relying on a single style, because each design is solving a different bird's actual physical constraints, not a human's idea of what a feeder should look like. Number 9, you've been using a pesticide, and it's moving further than you think. Most people spraying for aphids or mosquitoes aren't trying to hurt birds, but neonicotinoid pesticides, the most common class used in residential yards, persist in soil and plant tissue for months, contaminating the seeds and berries birds eat directly. A study published in the journal Science found that even sublethal exposure disrupted migratory timing badly enough to cost birds their breeding windows. During nesting season, 96% of North American land birds feed insects to their chicks. A yard stripped of insects by broad-spectrum spraying isn't just quieter, it's a yard where a parent bird cannot successfully raise a brood and won't try again next year. Number 10, you've never actually thought of yourself as someone your cardinal chose. This is the one that changes how the other 9 land. Most people who set up a feeder think of themselves as a supplier. Seed goes out, birds show up, transaction over. That is not what is actually happening. A cardinal has dozens of yards inside his territory. That could work well enough. He comes back to yours specifically. Everything on this list: the feeder placement, the seed, the water, the noise, the mess, the pesticide, is not a checklist he is grading in isolation. It is evidence he has been accumulating about you, morning after morning, that either builds trust or slowly spends it. And trust does not collapse all at once. It erodes quietly, visit by visit, until the day the feeder is full and nobody comes, and you are left wondering, what changed? When the honest answer is that everything on this list changed, a little, over a long enough time. If any of these hit home, tell me in the comments which one surprised you the most. And if you've ever realized that the cardinal at your feeder had been coming back far longer than you assumed, a familiar bird, a song you'd stopped noticing, tell me that too. Subscribe to Bird Sense for more of what's actually happening in your backyard every single week.